The X100VI, is it worth the hype? I did a video about this a couple of weeks ago and people were pretty excited about it, and I was as well. But now that I've had the camera for about 3 weeks, am I still as excited about it now as I was back then? Unfortunately, not really. And let me explain. Fujifilm continues to struggle with autofocus. I missed a number of shots with this camera, and maybe it's user error, maybe it isn't, I don't know. But Fujifilm still hasn't developed their autofocus to be competitive with the other brands. I'm currently using, for most of my work, Sony cameras, and the autofocus on the Sony cameras is just like next level. But even Panasonic, Canon, Nikon, I have a Nikon ZF, and the autofocus on that is excellent. So I know it's not a me problem, it is still a Fujifilm problem. And if Fujifilm expects to be competitive with the big boys, then they have to address that. The other thing that is not working for me with this camera is the workflow. So to get the most out of Fujifilm cameras in general, you really need to shoot and use your JPEGs. So I have a RAW workflow, and for me, it's like very difficult to take the files off of this and attempt to get them to look even half as good as the JPEGs that come straight out of this camera. Now, I'm sure there's people that are in the comments saying, you know, you're using the wrong software because I'm using Lightroom. You don't know what you're doing. You know, there's like a million different things that people are going to say, hey, that's not a Fujifilm problem, that's a you problem. And it probably is. But based on my experience using many other types of cameras, it should just be pretty similar. That raw image should be fairly similar to what I'm seeing in the JPEG, and it's way off, and I just can't seem to replicate it in Lightroom. So as a result, now I've got to handle the files differently when I import images from this camera as opposed to every other camera that I own. So I have to treat the JPEG separately, and then I have to stack them, and it's just a huge pain. So that is not working for me personally, but maybe you are different, so it doesn't really affect you. And then lastly is, again, this is definitely a me problem, is I really don't need this camera right now because I have a couple of other options that kind of fill this void. The first of which is the Leica Q2. So this camera, if you haven't had an opportunity to shoot with and use a Leica, I would encourage you to do so. These are incredibly simple. It has the best user interface of any camera maker that I've ever used. And the build quality and just the feel of the camera is terrific. But what's most important, obviously, is what comes out of it. And the images that I get out of the Leica Q2 are just incredible. I don't even know any other way to say it, but whatever magic special sauce that they put in these cameras, I'm sure you can replicate on some other cameras, but they just like bake it into the image itself. So when I download these DNGs, these raw files into Lightroom, they are awesome and they're so easy to work with. So I truly enjoy not only the shooting experience, but the post-processing with a camera like the Leica Q2. In terms of size, it is a little bit larger than the X100VI. You can kind of see there, you know, it's a little bit bigger, but in those situations, I have another camera here, which is the Ricoh GR3X. And this is a super stealthy camera. You could just like pull it out of your pocket, take a couple quick pictures, and move on with your day. And we had this on vacation recently, and I actually gave it to my daughter, and she was taking some pictures, and she was like, this is such a fun camera. And it really is a fun camera. And the results, again, out of this are fantastic. You know, when you bring it into Lightroom, again, it's also a DNG, not a proprietary RAW file that you get out of the Fujifilm. But the DNGs are also very easy to work with. And since it's an APS-C sensor in such a small body, you have plenty of latitude to push and pull that image as opposed to, say, a Micro Four Thirds or something that you'd get off of your cell phone. So overall, my thoughts on the X100VI is I can understand the hype, and for people who don't currently own a smaller, compact, fixed lens camera, it might make a lot more sense to pick this camera up as opposed to some of the other ones. But if you have some of those cameras, or even like an A7C or an A7C II with a smaller pancake type lens on there, maybe like a 35-2.8 or maybe one of the Sigma lenses that they have. you know, that would probably be a better option as opposed to this because of the autofocus capabilities that you get on the camera as opposed to the subpar performance that you're getting with this camera. But all in all, it is a great camera, just not the right camera for me. So no hate in the comments. Again, this just isn't the right camera for me, but I'm sure many, many, many other people are going to be very happy with this camera. Those are my thoughts for today. If you like this type of content, make sure you like, subscribe, and leave a comment down below and let me know your thoughts on this camera. That's all I have for today. Thanks for watching. Take care.